Blooming at Cashman Nursery as they do all spring and summer long. Well, welcome back to North Dakota Today, joined by Dan Cashman of Cashman Nursery. And Dan, today really is going to be one of the hottest days of the summer for a lot of places, hitting the century mark for the first time. Yep. But really it is time to start thinking about fall. And you said that there are some really magical kind of dates coming up in the sense of when things start to change.
Right. A lot of times we do say fall is for planting. That's an old nursery slogan from the different nursery associations we belong to. But, you know, we've had the dog days of summer. Maybe we're going to have more hot day today. But usually when we get to the last week of August, we'll see the average high around 70, 72, 73. It bounces up and down, but it gets to be a good time to plant again, just like the middle of May and end of May. It gets easier for the people that do their own or our crews that plant, and it's easier on the plants too.
Yeah, and I think that's an important thing. At this time of the year, you say it's a great time to plant, like you say in the springtime, and this is kind of coinciding with the same kind of weather conditions. Less water, what are some of the benefits of planting this time of year? I know you said some people, it slows down in June and July, but there are some real benefits to waiting until now.
Well, you know, like even if you get sod, sometimes you have to water it 3 or 4 times a day the first week or two until it roots down. And the plants maybe you have to water once a day for a while. But once we get another 10 or 20 degrees cooler, you might only water every other day. And then when we have humid days like this, the plants really like it. They like the water in the air, the humidity. It takes about a few weeks to root, but there's plenty of time. I get a little scared after the middle or end of October. We still have jobs that happen, especially commercial jobs. But I like to get everything rooted in before we get too close to the freeze up, which is usually early November. And then, but yeah, no, it's good. It's really good.
You know, and I chuckle a little bit because before we came on the air, Dan was talking about, and you've been in the business for such a long time, you know, on an average year it's going to happen here. This is going to happen here. You were talking about like, and not just kind of like early November for the first, when the ground's too hard. You were saying by the 7th of November, usually the ground is too hard to dig. And you say that August 25th is kind of a line too when things really start to cool off, especially maybe at night.
That's right. We get the cool nights. Now I'm seeing some plants that bloomed in the spring, like red twig dogwoods and weigela. They're starting to bloom again. When we get these cool nights, they're triggered and they bloom again, some of them, not everything. There's a new lilac that blooms again off and on when we get the cool nights. But you're right. It makes it easier when it's cool.
Yeah, and we've also lost close to an hour of sunlight during the evening, not to mention what we've lost in the morning. How does that affect plants and how they're going to react this time of year?
Well, so they're still growing a lot, but the big flush of growth is about from the middle of May till, let's say, the end of June. The days start getting shorter around the 21st, 22nd, the solstice of June. So they're still growing a lot, but they're growing a little bit less every day because our photo period, we're losing 3 minutes, 3.5 minutes. Last night at 9 o'clock, it was pitch dark. I said to my wife, I said, holy smokes, look at how dark it is.
What happened to summer, right?
But they're slowing down and they're getting ready for winter. And then so the demand for the water pretty soon won't be as bad. And, you know, I don't think I'd fertilize my bushes and shrubs now because they're trying to shut down.
Because that creates an urge to grow, right?
You might want to fertilize your lawn. They say the winter fertilizer, like in August, early September, then they root deep, the grasses do. But right now we want to let them, you know, harden off, enjoy the blooms. There's always something blooming. And they're getting ready for winter.
I want to talk about lawns in specific here in a little bit, but tell me about this. This is a beautiful plant, and you've got a lot of them out here.
Yeah, this is limelight hydrangea. It's a tree-form hydrangea growing on a trunk of a hydrangea. And we see a lot of them because, you know, the typical low hydrangeas bloom in June and July. In August, they start slowing down, and the big white flowers start turning green. When that happens around the 1st or so of August, these are PG hydrangeas, and they're like the
for
bushy
all
ones.
ages, right? PG, not PG-13.
Well, it stands for Paniculata grandiflora, but we just call them PG.
There you go. Thank you.
They shorten it to PEE, GEE, but that's another type of hydrangea that now they'll bloom another month or two, and it's just another great plant with a lot of color.
Yeah, there's a lot of things out here. If you want to have something blooming in your yard all year round,
you
basically
can do it
during the spring and summer, you guys can organize that. All right, let's talk about lawns. Now, this morning I woke up and I thought, you know what, I'm going to run my sprinklers. We had almost an inch of rain last week, and I'd been watering before that, so I didn't do any this week, but I was going to water this morning, but I noticed the wind was
Yep.
15 miles an hour or
Yep.
so when I got up. So I'm going to do it tomorrow morning after a hot day.
Yep.
Do you need to slow down on watering your lawn at this time of year?
Pretty soon there won't be as much demand. Like yesterday wasn't really a drying day, but when we have hostile day, I call a hostile day like 95 degrees, southeast winds 25 to 35 miles an hour. That's hard on plants. It's hard on lawns, especially a brand new lawn. But you know, if you have sprinklers or you can move a sprinkler with a hose, all you got to do is keep it moist until you get the lawn
You're talking
established.
new lawn,
A new lawn, yeah. And it's good to water. I water less often this time of year. Pretty soon I'm going to put the brakes on the watering. Not completely, but I'm going to cut back and let it all slow down and harden off. Roses, things like that, to keep on blooming. They're still blooming, but they're trying to slow down, and so I'm not fertilizing them anymore. But still they're blooming like crazy. So it's been a good summer. It hasn't been excessively hot, not as many days as
like
usual.
we've had.
It's been an easier summer.
2 years ago was just brutal.
Oh, 2 years in a row, 7 inches of precip at the airport. That's not much.
That, and that's the summer 2 years ago that we had like a record number of 100-degree days in the central part of the state.
Yeah, that's tough. That's tough. So, yeah, well, the clouds, the humidity, it all helps, and it's been a real good year for growing things. The garden seemed to be slow starting because April was cold, nothing happened.
You couldn't get out in the garden.
Yeah, you couldn't hardly even dig a hole. Everybody was late. The farmers were late getting their crops in, but then it tends to make up for it. But right now, things are looking good in the garden and everywhere.
All right, now we're still a ways away from that, but when would you recommend, you guys handle lawn sprinklers, when would you suggest that homeowners blow them out and be done for the
Well,
year?
I like to water once in a while till the end. I do cut back on the frequency and I cut back on the time, like in September. And I like to water like all this nursery stock. We can't just all of a sudden blow it out on September 10th because they're in pots and they dry out.
Sure.
So they need it now. They get about an inch a day now because it drains on a typical day. But so pretty soon we'll start skipping days and cutting down on the length. But usually about the middle of September, people start getting nervous. Now all the irrigation pipes are pretty much in the ground,
Sure.
and
And
it
they're
could
not
get
gonna
to
freeze.
22 degrees. It's not going to hurt them.
No.
But there's a lot of them to blow out, so they want to get on the list early. But the thing is, we usually blow ours out last year, and it's about the 15th or 16th or 17th of October. And one time I got caught and it froze up, but it did warm up finally. But I thought I was going to have a lot of broken pipes. But, you know, September, early October.
I'm glad to hear you say that, because usually around the 10th of October is as late as I try and push it. I'd rather be safe than sorry.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
All right, now we're down to about 30 seconds, Dan. A lot of times you guys will have flyers or little tip sheets on your website. Anything on your website that you want to let people know about?
Yeah, well, with all the snow we had 8 feet last year, so when the snow left, a lot of people came in April and May and said, what do I do now that the snow is gone and I see that the voles and the mice and the bunnies have chewed on the bark? I would wrap all the trees in the fall, especially anything that's only 2 or 3 years old that you've had only that long, protect them from mice and rabbits. I like to water maybe October 10th, 20th, and 30th on plants that were just planted this year, like perennials and new plants, and put them to bed wet. And other than that, you can fertilize your lawn after around Labor Day or later with the winterizer, and pray for an early snow cover that lasts. That's what we had last year, and we did have protection, but we had a lot of snow.
All right, he's Dan Cashman, Cashman Nursery, east on 10, north of the Penn in Bismarck.
Yeah. Wayne, thanks for having me.
You're
It's
welcome.
Always,
Tree,
always
tree.
a pleasure.
Give me the phone number.
Yeah, 222-3333, or east on 10, north of the Penn. We're just a half a mile east of the Big Boy.
Easy to find. All right, Dan, thank you so much. We're taking a break. Krista is going to look at your very hot Friday forecast.